to drive your career, not just ride along? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm Simone E. Morris, your host and career strategist, here to give you the roadmap. Each week, we're cutting through the noise with strategies, stories, and insights to get you back in control. Your career clarity starts right here. Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Simone E. Morris, and today we have an incredible guest with us. I'm excited, I have to tell you, audience. Joining us today is Amira Barger, an award-winning executive vice president and head of DEI advisory at Edelman. Amira is also the author of the powerful upcoming book, The Price of Nice: Why Comfort Keeps Us Stuck, and 4 Actions for Real Change. I can tell you I'm excited about the book. I've ordered it. I've interviewed her for my column, and I'm excited here. She's been recognized as a Woman of the Year and Top 100 executive for her work in strategic communications and DEI. Amira empowers individuals and organizations to drive real change. Get ready to be inspired, everybody, to be in the driver's seat. Let's dive right in. Amira, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Such a pleasure. I'm really excited to be here. And thank you for that very generous introduction.
Well, you have a mic drop background, so I am just speaking the truth and excited to have you on the show. So let's start out by you telling our listeners a little bit about what you're currently doing today in your work.
Yeah. Oh, I wear so many hats. I tell people all the time, don't be like me. Wear a few less hats than I do. But day to day, I get to spend my time with Edelman, one of the world's largest communications firms. And I practice strategic communications across sectors and industries. So government, nonprofit, Fortune 500 companies, and help them reimagine their employee experience with the tools of communications, but also the consumer or patient or customer experience as well, with the tools of communications, behavior change, and really understanding how do you get people to change a behavior. If that behavior is buying something, interacting with someone new, thinking on new innovative ideas. I get to use these tools in the world of communications to think on those things. I also teach communications and change management at Cal State East Bay here in the Bay Area where I'm based. And I write a lot. It's my passion. I love to write. I wish it was the thing I did all day, every day for hours on end, which is why I have a book coming out this October 2025. I got to put pen to paper on an idea that's been milling about in my mind for the last 12 years, and it's finally coming to fruition.
Well, congratulations on the book. I'm excited about the
Yeah.
content and, we'll chat a little bit about that as well. But you said a word that caught my interest, and the word
Mm.
is reimagine. And
Yeah.
this show is about reimagining your career where you're really taking ownership, very hands-on in the
Mhm.
driver's seat for your career. So as you think about your career body of work, when did you realize you were in the driver's seat for your career?
Oh, that's a really good question. I feel like I have a little bit of a unique um, background in that I've known for a very long time what I wanted to do. I remember in college, when we do those intro classes, those first 2 years that we all have to take, and they'd ask us, what do we want to do? And one of the classes was a career preparation class. And I was the only one who had already decided what I was going to do. And yeah, today I practice, communications and marketing, which is what my undergraduate and my graduate degree are in, which I know is also unique, as most people are working in an area or an industry adjacent or outside of what they received their degree in. And so the thing that has changed for me is that I pivoted. So I always knew I wanted to do communications and marketing within the public health or healthcare sphere. And I had a very strong compass around that. But I pivoted about 7 years ago from nonprofit healthcare and public health organizations to for-profit agency life. So I'm back in for profit. I'm in an agency structure practicing communications, still for healthcare largely, at least 50% of my time. But it looks a little different than it would have in a community-based organization. And so I do feel like 7 years ago was a very distinct pivot for me in my career. I got a little burnt out in the nonprofit world when you're resource strapped in terms of dollars and people. You wear many hats and you raise your hand a lot, or you're voluntold a
Ah,
lot.
yeah, familiar with that term.
To
Yes.
hold many jobs. And so I had always had the pleasure of hiring communications agencies or having them volunteer their time and their talents to our organization. And I thought I'd like to try my hand at that. I'd like to be a trusted advisor, a wise counselor, walking alongside the organizations that are often funding, volunteering, and supporting these causes in community and really have power and influence and resources to make a market and material difference for the people in community that really need these organizations. So I made the switch and the pivot into for-profit to try my hand at this and to continue to help the nonprofit sector just in a little bit of a different way.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. So let's get back to that clarity and that certainty that you enter college with.
Mhm.
When you go back and you think about when you were growing up, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Originally, I wanted to be a physician. So,
Ah,
healthcare and helping community has always been an underlying and foundational theme of my life and who I am. And for years, from the time I would say 5 years old, all the way up until my junior year of college, I was going to be a physician. And I was on that track. I was a pre-med student looking into all the right programs, took all the right steps, right? The path had been laid out for me. And as a part of those first 2 years of school, you have to take a few intro classes. So I took an intro to business class, and the professor in that class, who's a dear friend today, Bonnie Stahoviak, Dr. Stahoviak, she really just influenced me. I just felt a kinship towards her. She told these amazing stories about the impact business could have in the world, about her own mother who was working in a nonprofit and partnering with businesses and what she was doing. And I had always had a sort of knack for communications. I also grew up as a pastor's kid. And if there are any other PKs out there, as we
yeah.
call ourselves, you're often thrust before audiences and you're speaking from the time you can walk and talk. And so, you learn about leadership and influence very early on. And so communications had also always sort of been a part of who I was and what I did. I was always in a leadership role, always speaking before large stages of people and trying to get them to take up ideas, right? Or to think, feel, or do something different. And that's all communications work. And so this professor, I was influenced just by this class that she did and the story she told. And so I invited her out for coffee and we sat down, and that conversation was a real pivot point for me. And after that conversation of what could a career, a vocation, a life in business and communications mean for me and the impact that I want to have in the world long term and specifically in the world of healthcare. I still want to be involved in healthcare, but maybe that could look different than being a physician day to day. And we tossed around some ideas. And in my junior year of college, I switched my major from pre-med to marketing and communications. And so those last few iterations of semesters, I was taking classes at my four-year university and supplementing at a local junior college as well. So there were a lot of sleepless nights to make sure I graduated on time. I didn't want to do 6 years. I had to do it in four. And so I took all the extra classes I needed to finish with a degree in marketing and communications.
All right. This show is not about your parents, but I was thinking about them when you were. All right. So you bring up an interesting topic about the power of mentor and sponsor, really, because there's
Yes.
this person who shows up in your career and is game changing that has caused you to do a major pivot. I, in fact, went back to Miss S in high school who convinced me that I was college material when I was
Mm-hmm.
going someplace to secretarial school. So there's someone in our careers who've done that. As you think about mentoring and sponsorship throughout your career, talk to us about how powerful or tips that you have for people to better leverage mentors and sponsors in their careers.
Such a powerful set of relationships and each of them distinct. So I tell people all the time, you do have to intentionally curate your circle. And that means surrounding yourselves with mentors, sponsors, peers, and even mentees, right? If you're the smartest person in every room, you need to find new rooms. We've all heard sort of that quipped saying, right? And each of those relationships is a little different. For me, when I think about a mentor, I think about someone who is helping you to stretch your competencies, your abilities, and to grow in terms of how you think about the world and the skill sets that you need to have an impact in really powerful ways in your career, in your life, in your community. When I think about a sponsor to me is that person who says your name in the rooms that you don't yet have access to, and their job really is to help materialize for you whatever is next. If that's a board seat, if that's a job, if that is a business opportunity, they have power and they have access to materialize that ask. I need a promotion. I need to be a chief communications officer at XYZ Corporation. I need to be on a paid corporate board, right? These are sponsors who have power to help materialize those asks. Peers, naturally, people who can walk alongside you and share in the experience that you're having and be a thought partner on many things. And then mentees, you need to surround yourself with people that you are pouring back into, because the truth is that relationship is symbiotic. I learned so much from mentees. Sometimes I think more than they learn from me. There's
Yep.
a point of view that they provide and a set of questions that I always think to myself, I like the way you position that. I like the way you ask that. I like that you're thinking along those lines.
Mm.
Because we're at different stages of life, of career, of community, and their point of view can be really powerful and fulfilling in ways to you that you may not even know as a mentor. And so I tell people, curate that circle and think about those different kinds of relationships, because I do think there's a lot of focus on mentorship. And
Yes.
I think what people mean is sponsorship in a lot of cases. They want someone to materialize that next job, that next board seat, that increase in pay. And that's really what a sponsor does. And it's a different relationship. The way you might ask someone to sponsor you is going to be different than you would ask a peer or a mentor or a mentee for something. And what you give back in that relationship is going to look very different also, right? The quid pro quo is they're supporting you. How are you supporting them?
That's it.
Each of those relationships in that circle is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, I love how you position the circle, the squad, the advisory board. And I want to go back to if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to check yourself or, you frame it
Hmm.
differently. I want to ask about that because here's the thing, there's potentially a discomfort where you're not the smartest person in the room because there is some comfort like okay, I
Yeah,
kind of know my stuff, I'm ready. If they throw whatever they throw, I'm ready. But then you position yourself where other people are smarter than you, forcing you to level
yeah,
up. How are you navigating, or what tips can you give the audience about how to navigate with discomfort in your career? Because you know that the rub is transforming you as a leader and it's good for you, but it's
right.
uncomfortable. And some of us
Very.
labeled as an extrovert, that style may go inward instead of showing up authentic.
Mm.
Give us some tips about navigating the discomfort in your career.
That's something that is going to take a lot of head and heart work. Throughout my career, I have found that some of the most transformative and meaningful moments have been when I've, whether by choice or not, been forced to sit in my discomfort. Um, And I believe that change, I talk about even in the book that I wrote, I talk about how change doesn't often happen at the center. It happens at the edges, the edge of ideas, the edge of things, the edge of communities. And I think that's important as a skill set for leaders to have in being a lifelong learner, in upskilling or reskilling. One of those skills is how to sit with discomfort and to pause enough to notice your reaction and ask, why is this making me uncomfortable?
Mhm.
What is eliciting this reaction? Is it the process of what just happened? Is it the outcome that this scenario speaks to? Is it a gap in my understanding, a gap in my ability to process my emotions, right? To be able to pause with yourself and ask, why is this making me uncomfortable is such a vital and overlooked leadership skill, I believe. So, and you know that phrase that we hear all the time, if you're the smartest person in the room, find new rooms. It's because growth, like I said, it rarely happens when we are comfortable. To me, if I've gotten too comfortable and I haven't had a difficult or a challenging or an interesting conversation, that's concerning. I'm thinking, all right, I need to have some new voices in this room. I need to be challenged. I need to be inspired. I need to be stretched. And that happens with learning new things. I don't want to be stagnant. And definitely you might feel a sense of erosion to ego, but that's where the growth happens. To me, that's a signal. It's not a stop sign. That's a signal. Okay, I'm on the brink of learning something new, being inspired or being challenged. My ego hurts a little. That's a
Yeah.
signal. Keep going. Don't stop. And we don't ever want to be in echo chambers. That's a really, I think, dangerous and harmful place for a leader to be, is in an echo chamber of sameness. And we are naturally inclined towards sameness and likeness, whether it's people who look like us, believe like us, sound like us, etc. That is a bias that we all carry. And in order to mitigate it, you have to be aware of it and to intentionally surround yourself with people who do think differently than you. And in unexpected ways from you. That's where emergent ideas come from.
I'm stopping myself because my mind is going to a place and what you're saying is, I'm not going to say it out loud. What you're saying is resonating with me. And let me first go to the formula. So
Mm.
everyone has their own version of what it takes to be successful, what it takes to be
Mhm.
strategic and intentional and get the outcomes you desire in your career. So let me ask you, Amira, what is your formula for owning your career?
I like this question, and I'm going to pause and think. I've not been asked that specific question in that way before. The formula for owning my career. Hmm. In so much of my life and career, I have leaned on inquisition as a strategy, asking a series of questions that helps me think through what I want, the impact I want to have, and hopefully elicits seeing around corners I may not have considered before, or asking others in my life to ask me questions. I'm a firm believer that we should all ask more questions, bigger questions, and we should question everything under the sun. And for me, that has been really helpful and lucrative in my career journey. I would say that a theme has been asking bigger, difficult questions and questioning everything. And I think part of the work that I get to do every day in diversity, equity, and inclusion is very much attuned towards asking questions. Who was this institution created for? Who was not in mind when we created this constitution, organization, university, what have you, right? It's a series of questions I'm consistently asking about why things are the way they are today and who does it serve. So I think that's one key that I would offer and posit to others, is to ask more, bigger questions and to question everything. Um, I also think that for me, I think in, and many of us do, in arcs, right? I think in 2 year, probably 2 year arcs is what I think in most of the time because the world changes so rapidly. But where do I want to be? What are the skills, the networks, or the experiences that I need to get to that next arc in 2 years, right? And I thought about that a lot the last 2 years when I was thinking about writing a book proposal and getting this book baby birthed and into the world. That was one item that I put on that vision board for the arc of the next 2 years. And I think it's important for all of us to, I think, memorialize where you want to go, and what you want to impact in the world. It's very powerful for how you subconsciously and consciously make moves and make decisions when you put pen to paper on here's what my vision is for myself, my life, my family, my career the next 2 years, and to revisit it often. It's one of the reasons that I still journal. And I think
Mm.
truly that has been part of my formula for my career success is putting pen to paper on these things and revisiting them often, as well. And that has helped bring so many of these things to fruition or brought them to life.
I love that. I love journaling, by the way. I have to say, I have gotten a little lazy with doing the digital journal where I walk and talk into my journal, but I love the idea of journal to clarity because when you get it
Mhm.
out and you see it on paper, it really helps to provide that clarity. Like we talk about, uh, when you think about asking for support in your career,
Mm,
how do you how do you position the ask? Let's say a
mm,
sponsor or ask for what you're worth or asking in your career. What are some tips that you can share about how to show up authentically and to amplify your voice and to ask for what you want in your career?
mm. I'm
I can
trying
see
to
the
think of
wheels
it.
turning.
Yes, I want to think of an example. How about to ask for what you want in your career?
Mhm.
I think a powerful place to start is with your, whatever you want to call it, the squad, the kitchen cabinet.
Mm.
That's how I use my curated circle of people. Here's what I'm thinking, and I need a brainstorm partner to help me see around corners, to help also determine who am I going to make the ask to, right? Who in my circle, in my network, in my life is most well positioned for this particular ask. I think, for example, right now in my life, I am very actively thinking about paid corporate board leadership and
Mhm.
seats. I was named last year to 50-50 Women on Boards to Watch. There are 50 of us who are ready for board service. And those kinds of corporate boards are, it's word of mouth largely. It's about who you know, who's in the room. And when it has come to that ask, I have sat down and thought about what is the value proposition of Amira? What do I bring
Mhm.
to a boardroom and a table that is distinctive and useful to that company, to that industry, that might be helpful to how they meet their employees, how they meet their consumers, and ultimately meet their goals in the organization, and being able to speak to how I can help them fulfill that is also part of how I've been approaching people in my life who I know are in some of these conversations or are people who have too much going down on, so they turn down board seats.
Mm.
And I would love for them to, in the midst of turning it down, say my name and say, but you should go talk to Amira. And I have my sort of elevator script ready for what I can bring to a board. And I've done the footwork of being prepared for each of those conversations and each of those asks. And I think preparedness is one of the best things that a person can do because what it does is you sit down and you prepare is it brings you that clarity. Well, why do you want to be on a corporate board, right? Is it just to be paid? Is it the access to the network? Is it the particular vision and product that a company offers, right? Having the clarity of your why and being able to memorialize that is helpful to how you would approach people and also deciding who you would approach for that particular ask in your network, in your life. And so I think that preparedness piece is really important to understanding how to make an ask in the most right rooms.
Love that. A lot of gems shared there. When you think about upskilling, and because you are an expert in strategic communications, talk to us about resources that would be helpful for us to level up. Even, your
Mm,
expertise, strategic communication is a key lever for career success. So give us some tips around, what to read, or how
mm.
do the listeners level up, and what's helped you to level up in your career?
Ooh, okay. One of my favorites is something that people don't often expect. I want people to go to their whatever their favorite podcast, player or platform is, and listen to The Moth
Ah.
podcast. The Moth is a storytelling platform, and they do these events live, and they're recorded and you can listen to them on the podcast. They also have a YouTube page. But I have learned so much and gained so much in communications, in leadership from listening to the stories, the experiences, and the moments that matter from other human beings. And these aren't necessarily business people. These are just people, everyday people. They're telling stories of all kinds. And the way the moth works is they'll pick a theme. So maybe the theme is, favorite childhood toy or greatest lesson learned in college. Like there's some sort of theme. And the storytellers that day usually have about 5 minutes to tell a story. And as a communicator, one thing that I've learned and know is that the most durable way to help people learn lessons or to take up ideas or to at least be curious is through stories of other humans and how they move through and experience the world. And like you said, it's a skill set. And it's a skill set we can bring into the workplace of how do you communicate through stories when it's with your team or in a one-on-one or in a town hall. The power of story is something that I think every leader can tap into that could be of use. So listen to the Moth podcast. It will give you ideas, and I think it will also just help turn on that creative lever or switch in your mind for how you see and think about the world in different perspectives, and maybe give you some ideas of things you may not have thought of before that can help drive innovation and how you show up for your teams and how you conduct your work day to day. So that's one tip for sure that I would give people. Listen to the moth. I love a good TED Talk. It's how I get ready in the morning. Sometimes I'll just do a random one. And again, it's helpful for me to hear how others are framing, questioning, and thinking about the world around them. And there's often lots of gems that are applicable to, the workplace and how you might move through the world as a leader. I want people to journal. I really, really mean that. Like, it's a thing I tell people very often that there is something very powerful about writing down what you're experiencing, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, because it helps you self-reflect and it helps bring clarity for you, right? The journaling is for you. I find so much clarity when I pause to sit down and very intentionally understand what I'm working towards, what I experienced in that day, in that meeting, in that moment. And everyone does it differently. I am very analog. I have journals, a dime a dozen, all over my house, all over my car, in every bag. I've got big ones, I've got tiny ones. You can see I've got my little, like, field note
Nice.
sizes,
Yeah.
so that I can always, and it might be because I'm a writer too, so I always need something to scribble an idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
But some people, like you were saying earlier, some people dictate their journal via an app. and audibly, and that can be helpful. But I do think that it's a powerful exercise in gaining clarity for yourself so that you can show up in powerful ways as a leader, not just at work. I think in your life, in every relationship, clarity is important. I think it was Brene Brown who said, clear is kind. And, I want to be kind to myself as much as to other people. So getting clear for myself is also something I try to practice every day, which is why I journal.
I love that. I love that. I do find that I want to write a lot when I'm driving. And like that's why I started to record because
Yes.
the ideas come and I don't want to lose it. So totally understand about the journaling. Love the ideas that you're sharing and that you shared with our audience. Can you think of a title that would be appropriate for your career body of work?
Hmm. I really like that question too. I was doing another podcast live at a conference, and someone um, the podcast host. He reminded me of something that I had said that I had kind of forgotten because, like, I write and say a lot of things. So it's like, oh, that's a good gem. Who said that? He's like, you did. I was like, oh. Well, one thing I had said once upon a time that really has come from my upbringing as a child and my parents was that as a leader, I wanted a foundation to build from, not a kingdom to rule. And what I meant by that was that as a leader, I've seen so many people who what they want is power and more, and they collect and they pull things in so that they can control and shape and have it all. And what they want are people to rule, right? Like a king in a kingdom. And there's deference towards you, and everyone answers to you, and they bow to you, and what you say goes. And I talked about how that's not the kind of leader I've ever wanted to be. I don't want a kingdom of subjects to rule. I want a foundation. And to me, a leader who builds a foundation is you understand that maybe your role is to lay three bricks. And that's your role in building the foundation. And the person after you lays their three bricks, and the person after them, their three bricks. And everyone has had a hand in building something great and immaculate and inspiring and wonderful. And each of us has a role, and each of us has something to lay, a different kind of brick, a different color brick, a different shape of brick, but we all have something to give, and we all have sort of skin in the game. And that's how I've tried to live my life. It's how I've tried to serve as a leader, my teams, and how I've tried to shape my career is understanding that I am one of many bricklayers. And there is this foundation, this tapestry that we all get to have a part in. And so for me, that has been key to the workplace and leadership in my career is I want a foundation to build from, not a kingdom to rule.
Mm, well said. I can't think of a better way to wrap up today's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. Before we do that, I want to make sure I give you an opportunity to talk about the book succinctly and to tell listeners where they can connect with you if they'd like to do so.
Yes, so The Price of Nice, Why Comfort Keeps Us Stuck in Four Actions for Real Change comes out October 28th, 2025. And in this book, I unpack the ways in which I believe niceness is an insidious and harmful social construct, that it is not benign, it is not neutral, and that quipped saying of it cost nothing to be nice is a travesty of logic. It costs very much. And the antithesis of nice is not mean, and it's also not kind. I talk about the antithesis of nice as nerve. Nerve meaning challenging, disrupting, having the audacity to expect change, to ask more questions, and to ask, who does this serve? This status quo that we're all living through, and how can we reimagine it so that more of us can thrive in this world? So you can get it wherever books are sold, your favorite bookshop, or online book retailer. You can find it there online, and you can also find me soon at amirabarger.com. Otherwise, head over to LinkedIn where I'm most active.
Awesome. Well, it has been such a pleasure to better get to know you on the show, and I'm excited for what's next for you. And, who knows, you may have to come back. But thank you so much
Yeah.
for being a guest today on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Thanks for having me.
That's it for today's empowering episode. I'm Simone E. Morris, and I want you to remember that you are indeed the architect of your career. Share this episode if it sparked something in you. Subscribe wherever you listen, and find more resources at SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org. Keep practicing career ownership, and I'll be right here with you next week for more transformation.